What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to talk about the Sonus Faber Sonetto 2 bookshelf speaker. These are on loan from a friend who bought them brand new from a local dealer. He posted a picture of them in my Discord server where I thought they were the Lumina 2s. So I messaged him and I was like, hey man, can I borrow those? And he was like, yeah, no problem. So he brought them by. And when I took them out of the box, I was like, these aren't the Lumina 2s. And he's like, yeah, what'd you think I had? And I said, I thought you had the Lumina 2s. So either way, I mean, it's an upgrade for me. I get to review the more expensive model, the Sonetto 2. So we'll do this review the same way we generally do. I'll throw the main specs on screen so you guys can check that out. I'll tell you about the standout features that I think are cool. I'll tell you what the speaker sounds like. I'll tell you about some complaints. We'll do some comparisons and then we'll wrap it up. So, standout features. For $2,500, you're getting a speaker that's made in Italy. And I know that matters to some people. It doesn't matter to me so much, but I've heard people say things like they like seeing when a product is made in the same country where the manufacturer resides. So if that matters to you, here you go. Next is going to be just the fit and finish and aesthetics. Guys, if that's something that matters to you when you're buying a speaker, you should check out Sonus Faber. They really take it seriously. The cabinet has a ton of beautiful contours. The top is finished in leather. The Sonus Faber logo is embossed into the top. We've got a nice little plaque here that says Sonus Faber on the bottom. Another plaque out back above the binding posts. There's just a lot of real nice attention to detail with an eye for aesthetics, and I think it's super cool. The last bit, and I think this is going to be polarizing for some, is the metal bezel around the mid-bass driver and tweeter. For me, I could take it or leave it. It doesn't matter to me one way or another, but I could see some people complaining about that, and I could see some people really loving that. There also is a magnetic grill. So, what does it sound like? We got a top end that's going to be a little bit on the forward side of neutral. It's not going to be bright or harsh by any means. It's going to have a good amount of detail retrieval. The top end attack, I wouldn't say is necessarily sharp, nor is it softened or rounded. It's going to be fairly neutral with regard to its attack. Moving down to the mid-range, this is kind of the star of the show here, guys. Check this out. If you're the type of audiophile who, when you're buying a speaker or like judging a speaker, one of the things that, might be high up on your list or perhaps even at the top of your list is the way the speaker renders instruments with a sense of realism, then this is a speaker you want to consider. That's something it was really good at. If you want to be able to close your eyes and imagine like a real instrument is next to you, these speakers convey that very well. That's not something that I pay too much attention to when I'm getting speakers for myself personally, but I know that matters to a lot of people. I've seen a lot of comments about stuff like that. So I wanted to make sure to mention that because again, as far as in this price category, this was one of the better speakers I've heard that gives you that sense of realism with instruments. So, jazz listeners, people that love instrumentals, here you go. You know what I mean? Another thing that was really good in the mid-range was the sense of three-dimensionality, holographicness, and soundstage overall. And when we talk about these things, I mean, we're talking mid-range and up to the treble, really, right? Soundstage had a good sense of width, depth, height, holographicness, and three-dimensionality. And not all speakers do, right? There's some speakers that have a killer soundstage, but they're lacking in an area. KEF LS50 Meta, for example. Killer soundstage, good sense of depth, but its vertical height is a little bit short. Or Focal Aria 906. Good vertical soundstage, good width. Depth is a little shallow, however, right? Not with the Sonus Faber Sonetto 2. Soundstage overall was just very good. Moving down to the bass, there was no mid-bass bump or anything like that, but bass was very, very full, guys. This took me by surprise. Most bookshelf speakers don't have a ton of bass. They're a little bit light, generally speaking. And what can you expect? They're smaller speakers. This was very full from 50 hertz on up. Some people might say a subwoofer is optional for this type of speaker. For me, I'd still use a subwoofer if these were my speakers. Half of my listening sessions were without a sub, the other half were with a sub. And I really feel you could go either way, just perhaps depending on like how much room gain you have and your choice in music and how much bass is enough for you, right? So again, very full sound. Now, with that, it is worth mentioning, generally speaking, when a more affordable speaker, in and around this price point has good, strong, prominent bass, generally it's not the quickest bass, it's not the tightest bass. I'm not saying the speaker's slow and sloppy by any means, but it's definitely not the speediest, quickest, most articulate bass, but again, perfectly serviceable. So that is what it sounds like. What are my complaints? Because I do have some before I jump into these comparisons. Now, before I get into these complaints, take them with a grain of salt, guys. And if this speaker is on your list, it's something you're considering purchasing, still demo them, hear them for yourself. Don't take them off your list just because I got some complaints, right? So first and foremost, starting with the treble, I did feel like other speakers in and around this price point had a little bit more clarity, more of a sense of openness, more air and sparkle to the presentation. And I don't mean brighter, right? Other speakers in and around, and we'll talk about which ones when we get to comparisons. I just felt other speakers had just more of a sense of effortlessness to the top end presentation and better treble separation. Even some cheaper speakers like the KEF LS50 Meta does have better treble separation than the Sonus Faber Sonetto 2. I got one more on the treble actually. This next complaint, your mileage may vary, okay? But I was able to hear what I believe is a little bit of breakup in the tweeter. And the way I noticed this is when I was listening to the speakers, I really liked what I was hearing, so I turned up the volume a little bit. That's usually what most of us do, right? We like what we hear. We want more of it. But then I would turn it back down, and I would keep doing this. I'd turn it up, and then I'd turn it back down because I was hearing something I didn't like, and I really couldn't put my finger on it. And then a quiet passage came in a song, and I heard a really, really faint but very high frequency shriek that is not in the song. It's not in the recording. I've heard this song many times on many pairs of speakers. This sound is not in the recording. It's coming from the tweeter. I believe it's mechanical breakup, and that was very unfortunate because it led to a sense of the speaker lacking refinement and coming across harsh at louder volumes. And when I say louder, I don't mean that loud. I'm talking 80, 82 dB in my small room, right? And for anyone wondering, I do have room treatment. I've heard tons of speakers in this room. I've never heard that sound come out of any other speaker. I don't have any random electronics plugged in that I don't usually use. I think it's a little bit of breakup, unfortunately. It just is what it is. Now, I have had my ears tested recently, and I can hear as high as 18.5 kilohertz, which is quite high. So I don't think everyone is going to be able to hear that mechanical breakup, but it is there. And again, if these are on your list and you're thinking about buying them, I would demo them first and make sure you can't hear that breakup, because for me at least, it certainly was there, and it made it a total deal breaker for me. Anyhow, I digress. Sorry, friend that owns these, by the way. I hope I'm not making you regret your purchase. Anyway, what else have we got going on here on complaints? Dynamics. Let me describe what I mean by dynamics, then I'll tell you what my complaint is. Usually, in most songs, right, have a chorus. The chorus usually happens like 3-4 times in the song, right? At the end of the song, it happens twice. It's the formula for your average song. When that chorus comes in, right, like the last time, it usually is like after a little bit of a quiet passage in most songs. And the chorus comes in, the singer comes back, more instruments come in, and it comes in with like energy and sound power and gusto, and it gets a little bit louder sometimes. And the Sonus Faber Sonetto 2 just didn't really convey that with the sense of energy I'm used to from most speakers, kind of at any price point. They seem to just be more tame when that chorus would come in. That sense of like power, scale, it just wasn't there, unfortunately. That about wraps up my complaints with the speaker. Let's jump into some comparisons. And again, like I said, don't let my complaints be the reason you don't buy this speaker. If you heard what I said about the good things, that sense of realism with the instruments and things like that, and that matters to you, keep these on your list. Just demo them first. Comparisons. Let's talk about the Focal Aria 906. That's another speaker that's made in Europe, that's made in France. It's $2,200, so it is $300 cheaper. Both speakers have really unique cabinetry. I already told you about the cabinet work on the Sonus Faber. The Aria has got some really nice contours as well. So let's start with the sound. The tweeter on the, oh, you know what, real quick, let's talk about the aesthetics real quick, because the Aria actually does have some notable aesthetic touches like the Sonetto 2 does. The Sonetto 2 has a leather top. The Aria 906 has a glass top. The Sonus Faber Sonetto 2 has this nice like metal plaque here. The Aria has like this kind of like leather front baffle that also carries to the back of the Aria 906. So they both have like these aesthetic touches that most speakers don't have, that makes them feel a little bit more luxurious and upscale, which is pretty cool. So The Focal Aria 906 has a lot more air, clarity, and detail retrieval in the top end. I believe it has the better tweeter, just overall. Moving down to the mid-range, this is where personal taste is going to be a huge factor. The Sonetto 2, I already told you, has that huge sense of realism with the musical instruments. It's better than most speakers in and around this price point, including the Aria 906. The Sonetto 2 also has a little bit better soundstage depth in its mid-range than the Aria 906. Aside from that, the tonal character is very different. The Aria 906 compared to the Sonetto 2, Aria 906 is going to sound like it's going to lean more cool, dry, analytical. Sonetto 2 is going to sound more warm, rich, romantic, right? So again, big personal taste preference there, guys. Let's move down to the bass. Sonetto 2 has quite a bit more bass, quite a bit more of like a punch to it, a little bit more extension to it, more output to it, especially around 50 hertz. The Aria 906 has quite a bit less bass. However, that bass that it does have is still enough for the speaker to sound very full and instruments to have good body to it, and its bass is quicker, tighter, more articulate, and with better note-to-note distinction. So in summation, the Aria 906, better bass quality, lower bass quantity. The Sonetto 2, higher bass quantity, a little lower quality. Not a lot lower, just a little bit lower quality. So that's that comparison. I would say the mid-range is just really going to be what's going to, have you make your mind up for these two speakers. One area where the Aria 906 is actually a champion over the Sonetto 2 is going to be low volume performance. If you're a low volume listener, the Aria 906 has low volume dynamics for days. It has a huge open soundstage and sense of clarity and effortless delivery, even at super low volumes. And that's one thing I really love about the Aria 906. The thing I think most people will dislike about the Aria 906 is the cool or lean mid-range. Anyhow, let's jump into the Buchardt S400 Mark II versus the Sonetto 2. So the Buchardt S400 Mark II, again, its top end is more open, it's more transparent, it's more resolving, it has more clarity, and it has more of a sense of air and openness than the Sonetto 2. I think the S400 Mark II has the better tweeter than the Sonetto 2. Moving down to the mid-range, both are going to be a little bit on the warmer side, a little bit more on the richer side. Both speakers have a good amount of bass, so they have a nice, good, full mid-range. I'd give it a little bit of a win to the Sonetto 2 for instrument realism. Again, that's kind of its party trick. That's the thing it's really good at. But the S400 Mark II isn't far behind. The S400 Mark II has a very, very good mid-range. Its instrument realism is also quite good. Both speakers have a really good soundstage as far as width, depth, height, three-dimensionality, and holographicness, but I'm going to give the win to the Buchardt S400 Mark II. Its just stage is taller, wider, deeper, bigger overall, more holographic, more 3D, and so on. Moving down to the bass, again, the S400 is going to take a little bit of the win here. It usually does. That's kind of the thing it's incredibly good at. The bass on the S400 Mark II is fuller, it's tighter, it extends lower, it has more quantity, has better note-to-note distinction, and just it's overall better in every metric. There wasn't really any metric of bass where the Sonetto 2 even came close to the S400 Mark II. So that's that comparison out of the way. In conclusion, I'm going to kind of say this, guys, and it just kind of is what it is, right? If you're looking to spend $2,000 to $2,500 on a set of speakers, right? If you like instrument realism, you listen to instrumentals and jazz and things like that, I'd say definitely give these a look. However, I do think most people will be better served with the Buchardt S400 Mark II. It has the better tweeter. It has better bass. Its mid-range is better in many ways, and the only edge the Sonetto 2 has over the S400 is that sense of realism with instruments. But again, the S400 has that also. The Sonetto 2 is just a little bit better. In every other category or metric I can think of, the S400 Mark II is better. So, and this is why this is, if I've got this weird look on my face, it's because usually I don't pick the cheaper speaker. Usually I like the more expensive item. Those of you that have been following me for a while, on Nemo Propaganda Reviews, I almost never say to buy the cheaper thing. I almost always say things like, if you've got more money, buy the more expensive thing. I believe in this world, you get what you pay for, generally speaking. There are some times when a cheaper product outperforms a more expensive product, but it's very rare, and it's usually in the very cheap category. I'll give you an example. The Emotiva B1 Plus is $249, and it's better than the KLH Albany 2 that's $100 more, right? But usually over $1,000, it's very rare for me to see an affordable speaker a cheaper speaker outperform a more expensive speaker. And $500 is a big deal. The Buchardt S400 being $2,000 at the time of this review, the Sonetto 2 being $2,500, that represents the Sonetto 2 being 25% more expensive. It's quite a bit, guys. I don't know why you wouldn't just save that $500 and get the S400 Mark II. It has a better top end, more air, more separation, better detail retrieval, more refinement in the top end, more resolution. It's from mid-range on up to the treble, has a bigger soundstage, a fuller sound, a larger sense of scale, better soundstage depth. Its bass is more impactful, extends lower, it's fuller, it's tighter, it's quicker, it's more resolute, has better note-to-note distinction. I can go on for days here. So that's the takeaway. If you got any questions, ask in the comments below, guys. This YouTube channel does have a free Discord server. You're welcome to join. The link is in the description. However, if you join the Discord, it's not a place to come to and try to flex your ego and try to be the smartest guy in the room. Be cool in there. You know what I mean? The way you want to behave in the Discord is like the same way you would behave if you were, say you linked up with an old friend you hadn't seen in a while. You're not going to be like excessively nice to him. He's one of your buddies, but you're not going to be like mean to him either. Like, if he's gained a couple of pounds, you might not say anything, right? You're going to be polite. You're going to be cool. So be cool in the Discord. Read the rules section too, by the way. There's not a ton of them, but the few rules that we have are important. So with that said, that brings this review to a conclusion. If you have any questions, again, ask in the comments below or the free Discord. And until next time, later.